like you're gonna stay here in this body, we're going to praise the Lord. You know, so that's how I encourage.
Say that a little louder. Say it again. The people in the back.
Well, the people in the back, you have to speak to that illness. Speak to that illness.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Overcoming Illness. I feel like I haven't been here in a while. So welcome everybody. I am your host, Paula Denoncourt, founder and CEO of Enrich Your Health. I am a holistic health consultant. I've been doing my business since about 2010. And I help people overcome their illnesses by helping them with their diet, their lifestyle. I myself suffered from multiple food allergies, so I really had to take the bull by the horns, so to speak, and totally change my diet. I had to eat things that were like gluten-free and dairy-free and sugar-free and nut-free, you name it, I had to do it all. So I can totally relate to people out there that are suffering from different types of food allergies and food sensitivities. If you have not seen my show, I've been having people on. I interview people that have overcome illness or even emotional illness. So we've had all kinds of guests on. Please go back and watch them. I've had people on that have had cancer, congestive heart failure, a stroke, autoimmune issues, mold toxicity, you name it. We have had guests, and I am looking for more guests. We are booking for June. I'm looking for sponsors. I do have a sponsor this month, and I'm so excited and so thankful for Paula Resendez, who is our sponsor, our monthly sponsor, that can help me to help you and support the show and support what we're doing here in Enrich Your Health with overcoming illness. So if you are out there and you have overcome some sort of illness, it could be cancer, it could be Lyme disease, it could be whatever, COVID, whatever it is you've gone through, or maybe you are witnessing somebody going through it. Maybe you're a nurse, a doctor, an apostle, a pastor, anything like that. I need you. The people need you. So please reach out to me. I'm going to have some information on the screen. You can text me. That's usually the easiest way. Or you can go to my website, enrichyourhealth.com, enrichurhalth.com, and you can get my phone number there as well. But text is usually the easiest way, or you can Facebook message me or Instagram message me. It's just under my name, Paula Denoncourt, which is on the screen. So with that, tonight I have a topic that's near and dear to my heart, Lyme disease and mental health. May is like awareness month for many different illnesses, but two of the top ones are mental health awareness month and Lyme disease awareness month. So I want to talk a little bit about each and how they intertwine. But just so you're aware, it's like awareness month for a lot of different things, lupus and what's the other one? I just saw brain tumor awareness month. Lots of different things in May. But we're going to talk about Lyme disease. For those of you who don't know me, I am a big Lyme disease advocate. I've helped in the Lyme disease community back in Massachusetts. I am in North Carolina now. So just so you know, let's see. I helped with Central Mass Lyme Foundation back in Massachusetts. I used to go to all the group meetings, the support group meetings, just so I could learn more. We had guest speakers there, and I was learning more and more. And the more I learned, the more I could educate other people with Lyme disease. So it's an illness that really seems to get thrown under the rug quite often. Many people walking around with it and don't know they have it, or they just have an autoimmune issue that can mimic Lyme disease. Mold toxicity, we talked about on a couple of the shows with my friend Avis. It can mimic Lyme, or some people have Lyme disease and mold toxicity, so they have both. So we are going to talk about Lyme disease first. I'm just going to put the comments on. So I do want to welcome everybody wherever you are in the world. It could be morning, it could be evening, it could be afternoon. wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because I know people watching from all over the world. So I do want to welcome you. I don't know who's watching exactly unless you make a comment. So feel free to ask questions or make comments. I do pay attention to that. So feel free to let me know. And please give Elevation TV Network some love. Go over to their YouTube channel and like their YouTube channel. Please go over to my YouTube channel, which is Enrich Your Health, and go over and like and subscribe to that. I'm starting to add some more content over there. So please go over and like that. So with that, let's talk about Lyme disease. So I'm going to talk about, well, first and foremost, full disclosure. This is not medical advice tonight, not meant to treat, heal, or cure any illness. These are just some things that I've learned along the way from other practitioners from Lyme disease, things that I've read, things that I've learned. I'm going to share some different resources for you for Lyme disease that can be very helpful. So first and foremost, let's talk about Lyme disease. When I first heard about it, I knew nothing. So where does it start? And some things I am going to tell you are a little bit controversial. You have to do your own research. There's nothing etched in stone, no scientific proof. These are just things that we're learning and believe may or may not be true. So we'll leave it at that. We don't know for sure if these things are contributing, but from some of the things I've witnessed, some of the people I've met, and some of the people I've learned to get to know in the Lyme disease community, some of these things we believe are definitely a possibility. So how do you get Lyme disease? Well, first and foremost, you get it from a tick. It's a tick bite. Most people, not everybody, but most people are familiar with after you get that tick bite, it forms like a red target on your body. And what does that look like? That looks like, believe it or not, I just said Target. Look at Target. Yes, I'm talking about the department store. Look at Target, and you will see just any kind of it's a bullseye rash. When some people get bit, that's usually the telltale sign that you got bit by a tick that is infected with Lyme disease. Now, believe it or not, it is easier to take that tick off of you, save it, put it in a little baggie, or put it in a jar or something like that, maybe like a little test tube, maybe not a jar, and send that off to somewhere that can test it. Now, when I lived in Massachusetts, you could send it to tickreport.com, tickreport.com. We really liked that place for testing the ticks, because believe it or not, it's easier to test the tick than it is for you for Lyme disease. So you would want to send that off there, because the people that study that tick are UMass. So UMass is a hospital. It's a very, very well-known hospital for studying and doing research on illnesses. So they can really track it, tell you if the tick had Lyme, and not only that, but they're keeping those studies. They're keeping track of it. So now you know how many people in that area, that region, that city, that town, whatever, are getting Lyme disease. So it's very, very helpful to send it out. Now, with that, I am in North Carolina now. I am not sure exactly where you can send them out, but I'm sure it's not hard to find. You can just Google it and find out where you can send a tick if it has Lyme disease. You can get a kit. I do not make any money off of this, but my friend, he invented Tickies, and it's called TICKEASE, S as in Sam, tickies.com. And it's a little kit with a little tweezer, and I think it has like a magnifying glass. You can order that. And when you're out hiking and walking and doing all these different things, carry that with you, and it's helpful if you need to remove a tick. Do not put these things on that people tell you to do. I don't know, I forget what they are, but like dishwashing liquid and all these crazy things, because if that tick gets mad it's going to take its ugly little fangs and dig deeper into you. So you don't want to put any kind of liquid or anything. I know it goes around Facebook all the time. Do this, do that. You just want to get rid of it. You want to tweeze that thing out and get rid of it. So here's a perfect example of being exposed to getting bit by a tick very easily. Now, I live in a beautiful area. I'm over by a lake. I was walking yesterday and I saw these kids rolling down the grass. There's a beautiful hill. And I was like, my first thought, I know, you hear these kids playing, you think that's great. I do. It's awesome. But my first thought was like, oh my gosh, I hope they have some sort of prevention on them for a tick bite. That grass could be loaded with ticks. That could be spell for disaster. So what do you do when the kid comes in? If, say, this is your kids and they're outside playing and they're playing ball and they're doing this and they're doing that. Well, first and foremost, you can put DEET on them. Yes, I know I do not like chemicals either. And if you absolutely can't do a chemical, you could use some kind of essential oils like tea tree. I think rose geranium is another one. You'd have to look it up, do your own research, but I think tea tree oil is one. But they're just not as strong as something like DEET. DEET is more foolproof. So it's up to you. I say, put a little chemicals on you, rinse it off when you get in the house. You're better off to do something like that and not get bit by a tick and have that Lyme disease in you for life, right? So it's your choice. Understandably, if you don't want to put chemicals on you, or maybe you can't. Maybe you have a very sensitive skin, sensitive immune system. Understandable. I'm just saying that DEET is just it's stronger than some of the essential oils that they put out there. But there are some that are, that can be helpful. So, you don't have to take my word for it. Do your own research. So that can help get rid of them. Excuse me. Another thing I've read that helps prevent ticks from getting on you and biting you. If you're going to be out in the garden, you put rubber boots on. They can't crawl up the boots. If you're someone like me who always has long hair, tie it up in a bun, put on a hat. So if the ticks come from the tree and jump on you or whatever, it won't get on you. One of the most common symptoms of a tick bite is usually it gets to the back of the neck, the back of the ear. And once it's bitten there, that's when people have pain. They get these shooting pains up the back of the neck and head pain, headaches. So that's where it always attacks, like the back of the ear, the back of the neck, get bit there. What else? So you can do tuck your pants into your socks. I know you look silly. If you're going hiking, that's something you can do. You can get permethrin. Now, permethrin is toxic. So you would want to have it treated on your clothes or on your shoes only, not your skin. You could buy permethrin treated clothes. I believe it's spelled PERMETHRIN, permethrin. You can buy the clothes that are already treated. This also deters ticks. This is a great way to go for people that are outside all the time. So your landscapers, just people that are just constantly outside this time of year, to just get permethrin treated clothing. There's a guy that lives on the Cape, Larry Dapsis, good friend of mine. He does a lot of studying of ticks, and that's what he does. He buys permethrin treated clothing, I don't know if he sprays his shoes or he just gets the shoes that are treated. I'm not sure, but that's what he does because he's always out in the field and he's, picking up these ticks and everything. And so it's the way he prevents it. So that's another thing you can do. If you're outside and then you come back in, you can use a sticky lint roller and roll that across your body. And that's going to pick up the ticks. Now, ticks, let me tell you, I know a lot of us are familiar with the bigger ones that a lot of times are on dogs. Some ticks are as small as a poppy seed, like on a bagel. So if you look at the little tiny seeds on a bagel, you don't even see these things. Some people don't even know they got bit by a tick and they've gotten sick and, they have all these issues, and we'll talk about the symptoms in a minute. And they've gotten sick. They don't even know they got bit by a tick. The bullseye rash is not the only symptom you will get. Some people don't even get that. So I just wanted to mention that. So those are some things you can do. When you get in the house, like I said, before you can get in the house, I would say do the sticky roller thing. I have a friend that goes hiking all the time. He does the sticky roller thing all the time, and he'll show us. He'll do it on Facebook, and he'll be like, look at all the ticks I got today. Another thing that's not proven, but I swear, and many of us do, once you have the illness, there's something in the body. And if there's any doctors or scientists out there that do have a proof on this, some kind of scientific study, I want to know, please reach out to me. But we swear that there's some kind of odor or sense that you have in your body once you've gotten the illness, and ticks are now attracted to you more. I have friends back in Massachusetts, and I kid you not, they don't have animals or anything, and they'll be on Facebook and go, there's a tick in my bed, there's a tick on my couch. I don't know how these ticks are finding them. They're not, they probably don't live in the middle of the woods. And I've seen it time and time again with people that I know. They get the illness, and these ticks are like attracted to them. It just finds them. It's one thing if you have animals, if you have horses especially, or if you have dogs. Yes, the ticks can be coming in from the animals, but some people don't. And they're not even going outside. They're afraid to go outside. They have Lyme disease. They don't want to go outside anymore. So how are these ticks finding them? Like I said, if you are a doctor or a scientific person, please let me know if there are any foolproof studies on that. But that's what we find, that once you have the illness, there's some sort of scent that those ticks are finding you. But anyway, so that's something. So once you've done the sticky roller thing, you come inside, take a hot shower, throw your clothes in the dryer for 20 minutes. The heat can kill any ticks that are on your clothes. It will not get rid of them in the washing machine. They can survive the washing machine. So that's bad news. So make sure you put them in a dryer for at least 20 minutes, your clothes, and that will kill the ticks if there are any on you. So those are some things you can do. You can tuck your pants into your socks. I know it might look silly. You can do permethrin. You can do permethrin treated clothing. Never, never, never put it on your skin. You can do DEET. You can do essential oils. There are different types of essential oils. Do your own research. Make sure if you're a woman, put your hair back, tie it. If you're a man, you could always just wear a hat. But with this warmer weather, ticks don't die in the winter with the warmer weather. So it doesn't matter whether you're in North Carolina or anywhere. I can't even tell you. I traveled quite a bit a few years back, and I can't even tell you how many people say, "Oh, we don't get Lyme disease here. We don't get ticks here." Yes, you do, and they did. I mean, you just do your research. It may be more prevalent in different areas. New England, especially, it's high in New England, very high in New England, but it's high in the Carolinas too. Like I said, people are not paying attention to it. They don't realize how debilitating it can be if you do get it. So like I said, I saw these kids rolling down the hill, and I mean, I'm not going to go over there and say, hey, are you protected for ticks? I am not going to do that. But it was my first thought, like, do they even have any protection on? I mean, there's a restaurant there. They're probably just going out to eat, right? Who would have thought, so just something as simple as that, they could get a tick bite very easily and be sick in a couple of days. So keep that in mind with your own kids. If they're outside playing, make sure you're checking them for the ticks, and make sure you're preventing it from getting on them, because kids like to play. They like to play in the grass and play, whatever, hide and seek, ball, you name it. They love to just roll around, and you know what I mean? So football, anything like that. So they're rolling around on the ground, and that's what those ticks are, unfortunately. So with that, those are some ways you can get it. Some non-conventional ways you can get a tick bite or get Lyme disease. It can run in the family. We're finding it running in many, many different families. When I went to all these group meetings, oh my gosh, Let me name a few of the people. My friend Darlene had 19 family members that were coming down with Lyme disease. They were getting diagnosed one by one. One woman had 6 kids. All 6 kids have it, and her husband was recently diagnosed, probably in the last 8 years or so. The founder of Central Mass Lyme Foundation, she was the one, the foundation that I worked with. Her mom was misdiagnosed of Lyme disease and died. They diagnosed her with ALS. Shortly after, she found out her husband had it. And so he's dealing with it. Another woman in the group meetings that I would go to, she had 3 kids. All 3 kids of hers have it. She has it, and her husband has it. Another woman that would go to all the group meetings, she has it. Her husband has it. She's a realtor, so she got bit again going and showing houses. If you're a realtor, something to keep in mind. You're always going through all that brush and high grasses and things that haven't been cut. That's where the ticks are. They like to hide in those places. Use protection. You know, you might be all dressed up, getting ready to show a house. Find something that you can put on that's going to protect you. You don't want to get bit by a tick. She knew right away the second time she got bit. Felt it right in her shoulder. So those are some people that I know that it's running in families. So how is it running in family? This is controversial. And once again, there are some studies out there, but not enough. Many people will say, no, that's not true, not happening. So once again, do not hold it against me. This is not scientifically proven. It's not on the CDC, but we believe it might be sexually transmitted. That's one way. Another way is a blood transfusion. I met a person here in North Carolina. Her and her husband were both dealing with symptoms of Lyme. They didn't know they had it. She had a hip replacement at a very, very young age. And also a blood transfusion at a very young age. Now she's married. I talked to them for a short while. They were breakfast with me a couple of years ago when I moved here. And just putting 2 and 2 together, I believe something came through the blood transfusion, and she was probably born with it to begin with, because after talking with them, her whole family had lots of health issues. So like I said, I am not a doctor. I'm not diagnosing them by any means. This is just things that I've realized or come to the conclusion of, you know, like I said, it's not a full diagnosis, not foolproof. And again, not medical advice or anything like that. But you know, the signs were all there. The symptoms were all there. So, you know, maybe passing it back and forth to her husband, whatever. You know, even my realtor, she had some issues going on, and she also had a blood transfusion. Told me that the person with the blood transfusion had very high rheumatoid arthritis. I don't know how she knew that, but she did. So she may have gotten something like Lyme disease or an autoimmune issue from the blood transfusion. So those are some ways. Mother to child nursing. Those are some other ways. Non-conventional, like I said. And I can't stress enough, this is just stuff we're finding. There are some studies on it, but nothing is concrete. You know, you're not going to find it on the CDC. So just want to let you know that. Just something to keep in mind, and then do your own research. See what you can find about it. So those are some ways that it can be passed on. Dr. Stephen Phillips was finding out, believe it or not, lots of it traces back to Italy. Who would have thought? Originally, it's been thought that it started in Lyme, Connecticut, which is where the name Lyme disease came from. There's a lot of horses there. Kids were getting bit by ticks, and they started getting arthritic type issues, rheumatoid arthritic type issues. And so that's where the name Lyme came from, Lyme, Connecticut. But, you know, they're tracing it back even further. So it mimics a lot of illnesses. It really does. It's a great imitator. So with that, so those are some ways of preventing it. Those are some ways that we get it. now let's talk about, what do you do if you do get it? Or how do I even know that I have those symptoms? So let me talk about the symptoms, and then we'll talk about what would your next steps be. And then I will talk a little bit about how it ties in with mental health. So let's talk about some of the symptoms. So I talked about the big one, the rash. You get the bullseye rash. It looks just like you're playing archery, like a bullseye rash on your body. You can Google it. You'll see all kinds of images. It looks just like Target, the logo for Target, the department store. So that's one way, to know that, okay, I got bit by a tick. I've got this huge bullseye on my body. It's probably Lyme disease. And even with that, some people go to the doctors and stuff, and because it's so hard to diagnose in the blood and all of that, they don't automatically say, oh, that's Lyme disease. They'll make you go to like 5 different practitioners. It's crazy. Why, I don't know. But a few years back, that's what it was like. I don't know if it's still happening, but that's what it was like a few years back. That's one symptom. You might start to get low-grade fevers. You might start to get, like I talked about before, pain in the back of the neck, pain in the, you start to get headaches, can't get rid of headaches. It affects vision. People have like a really big time sensitivity to light. They have a sensitivity to sound. Things are too noisy, too loud. They may go in a restaurant. I know my friend Darlene would go in a restaurant. It's like, I can't take this sound, like this music. It's too loud for me. It was just your normal, ambiance music in the background. But it's too much for people with that illness. It affects the nervous system. So it stimulates the nerves and makes them crazy. So you get joint pain. It affects all the joints, your knees, your hips. Like I talked earlier about the woman with getting a hip replacement at a young age, like a child age. What child gets a hip replacement? Lower back. It always affects the lower back. So there's lower back pain there. It affects the gut big time, because if your gut's not healthy, that's where all the spirochetes go, which spirochetes look like, they actually look like corkscrew pasta, believe it or not. Those burrow into the body and hide in different places in the body, and that's why it's so hard to detect. They just burrow into you. It's insane. And the gut is one of the biggest places. It feeds off of sugar, which almost every illness feeds off of sugar. So one of the things I've noticed in the Lyme disease community, they crave sugar like no tomorrow. Like they need, I've had friends, I gotta have donuts, I gotta have pastry, a lot of us crave sugar, but they crave it. Like they can't stop it. It's the illness doing that. And when they do have it, it makes them sick. It makes them just don't feel well. Lots of joint pain, don't feel well, exhausted. Because the illness is feeding off of that sugar when you give it that sugar. So, some key things, like I said, you get the joint pain. So if you're eating gluten and you get a lot of joint pain right away, if you're eating sugar and you get a lot of joint pain right away, it's a symptom. It's a possibility of Lyme disease. A lot of times they get Bell's palsy. If you don't know what that is, it's usually like the drooping of the face. Almost looks like somebody's had a stroke. That's one of the symptoms. TMJ, lockjaw, that's one of the symptoms. It affects the kidneys. It affects every organ in the body. Plantar fasciitis, the bottom of the feet. I can't really explain what it does, but that's another issue that's very common, is plantar fasciitis. Neuropathy is another symptom. So lots of tingling in the hands and the feet. Don't feel your feet right. Those are some symptoms. Trying to think. Oh, frozen shoulder. That's another big one. I hear that a lot. I always get this frozen shoulder, and I can't lift my shoulder. somehow, like I said, it affects the joints. So your knees, your shoulder, hips, so the shoulder's a big one. People get frozen shoulder and they cannot, that's a tough one to treat. I've seen a lot of people have that and they, just keep getting it from time to time. Trying to think if there's any, it affects the gums. So people have those little spirochetes that I talked about, how they burrow into your body. It affects the gums. So it gets into your gums. So Michelle, that started Central Mass Lyme Foundation, she's done talks for dental hygienists to kind of talk about Lyme disease and all of that. So what to look for, in people that go to the dentist. My goodness, there's just so much. So those are some really key symptoms. So if you hear somebody say, oh, I have fibromyalgia, Dr. Elena Freed said this, I'm not saying this. She believes there's really no such thing as fibromyalgia. It's a symptom, but it's not the actual illness. The actual illness is an autoimmune issue, and most often than not, it is Lyme disease. They can't do like a blood test for fibromyalgia. So a lot of people that have like fibromyalgia, MS, multiple sclerosis, ALS, Parkinson's, they're all similar. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to say they're one and the same, but they're very similar, and they fall under a similar umbrella of that autoimmune issue. So you've got to get to the root cause of it. What's doing this? And a lot of times it starts in the gut. And we're going to talk today about what you can do to help with the gut shortly. How much time do we have? Yeah, I'm going to go to a brief commercial break, and you're going to see a little something, and then I'm going to talk about the gut. And then I am going to talk about, okay, we talked about all the symptoms. What's our next steps? So let's do that. I'm going to go to a commercial break really quickly, and we will be right back in about 30 seconds. All right, so I don't know who's watching, but if you didn't notice on that, it might be a little hard to notice. She's putting a capsule in that pudding, and it breaks it all up. So one of the things I suffered from was multiple food allergies. Basically, what was happening is the food I was eating was not breaking up properly and not digesting properly. So one of the things I was put on when I started with multiple food allergies was digestive enzymes. So that's why I'm so excited to have Paula Resendez of Trainont to be my sponsor, because it's something that's near and dear to my heart. I needed that when I suffered from multiple food allergies. It is such a big help to break down the food that you can't. So I talked earlier about Lyme disease and the gut. It affects the gut. So a lot of times, because you're eating all this sugar, you're getting candida. So taking those digestive enzymes from Trainont, or even some of their probiotics, anything similar to that, prebiotics, probiotics, anything that's going to help your gut is going to help with something like Lyme disease. I'm not going to say it's going to cure it, but it will help with all those food allergies and food sensitivities and all of that, because it's going to help break down your food, your fats, your proteins, your carbs that your body can't. And believe it or not, you're going to notice yourself lose weight. No promises, But because you're breaking down those little particles like you saw in the pudding, it's hard to see, but it breaks it all down. And that's what it's doing in your body. It's breaking it down. We don't break it down. We need more foods that are not cooked, and we don't eat enough of them. So we're not breaking down the foods. That's why a lot of us we're all bloated. We've got that muffin top. I was watching what the heck was the name of the movie? Eat, Pray, Live, with Julia Roberts, and she was talking about her muffin top, and I was laughing. So if you want something like that, you need some help digesting your food, you feel bloated all the time, or you suffer from food allergies or food sensitivities, let me know, and I will get you in touch with my sponsor, Paula Sundays, because that was key for me to take those enzymes. I really, really needed that help. I mean, I remember one day I gave somebody a digestive enzyme, and that helped her from having a stomach ache. I've talked about it in one of my shows. We were in school. We were at New York School of Integrative Nutrition. Both ate salad, but she just happened to have a different kind of salad. She had a different kind of lettuce that was harder to digest. I had a really good digestive enzyme with me. It took a little convincing, but she took it, and her stomach ache went away. So I'm telling you, enzymes, if your body is not breaking down your food properly, can really, really help with food allergies, food sensitivities. Because if you're not breaking down your food, you're going to get bloated, and it's going to come up. So you're going to get that heartburn. You're going to get, sometimes you can't swallow, which would happen to me. I went into anaphylactic shock. So just wanted to share that with you. So that's something that can be really helpful for somebody with Lyme or an autoimmune issue. So we were talking about all the different symptoms. We talked about how to treat Lyme disease. So now what's the next step? We've got all these symptoms. Now what? Well, everybody's different. If you catch it right away, you need to get on antibiotics, and you need to get them on them pronto. Like you need like 28 days if you can get the doctors to do it. Most of the time they won't. But if you can push, get them to do it, because that's going to get it right at the root right away. Now, if you've had it in your body a little while, it's going to be a lot harder to treat, a lot harder to diagnose. Like I said earlier, it's the great mimicker, and it's burrowing in the body, and it's very hard to diagnose. So let's talk about some of the ways that they do diagnose it. The first way is the ELISA test, ELISA as in Sam, the ELISA test, and that usually comes back in a few days. It's only about 50% accurate. That's the one most doctors will push for and push you out the door, unfortunately. They'll say, you're negative, you don't have that, bye-bye. And 9 times out of 10, you'll talk to people out there with all kinds of symptoms, and they'll tell you, I got tested for Lyme, I don't have it. But that's the only test that they had. The next test is the Western blot test. That one takes a little bit longer. It takes about 2 weeks to come back, and is more accurate. That's about 80% accurate. Now, thankfully, more and more people are they're doing better testing. I don't know exactly who is doing these tests. Now, here's something else. I don't want to overwhelm everybody, but you can get, I'm not even sure now, it could have gone up. You can get anywhere from 250 to 300 co-infections under the umbrella of Lyme disease. So now they're doing testing that's more specific. They call them bands. So there's all different co-infections. Some of you have heard of like Rocky Mountain fever. There's a couple of them, Ehrlichia, Babesia, Bartonella. So when I talked about earlier, you don't necessarily get a bullseye rash. Some of these co-infections have different kinds of rashes. Sometimes people look like they have stretch marks. That's a sign of Lyme disease, especially if you see it in a kid. Oh, we didn't even talk about this yet. We'll talk about the mental health, and especially with kids. So those are some ways to test it. You can do that. You have to find the people that'll do the test for the, I think it's 200 to 250 co-infections, because if that comes back positive, say Babesia, Bartonella, then that's your key. Okay, I've got Bartonella, I've got whatever it is. For some reason, don't ask me why. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. But for some reason, the band for Lyme comes back negative. But the band for the more specific co-infection will come back positive. And that's where the gap lies, where a lot of people just keep going to doctor after doctor and not getting a diagnosis. So just wanted to mention that. So with the mental health part of it, so there's some things, if kids get Lyme, there's some other symptoms that can play a role. Some of them get Tourette's type issues. You know, the tics, the motor tic disorder, when they're always going like that, or they yell out a swear word, whatever it is, motor tic disorder. So they get like Tourette's syndrome. Their cognitive ability just isn't there. And that's an adult or a kid. Something could be on the tip of their tongue. Say you were sitting across the table and they wanted to say, Mom, pass that cup. And they're like, pass that. You can't say it. It's not there. They can't grasp a lot of information. Like when we would do conferences for Lyme disease, oh my gosh, it was crazy because almost every person had Lyme. And it's very hard for them to grasp so much information. It's hard for anybody, never mind somebody who's ill. So they'd always have to write everything down and keep track of everything and be like 10 times more organized than an average person. Anybody can have trouble, let alone somebody that's ill. So their cognitive ability isn't there. Here's some other examples. My friend would say she couldn't remember how to get home, and she'd call her husband and he would kind of be mean about it. What do you mean you don't know how to get home? She just couldn't remember, and she was only in her 40s. Another woman that I talked about earlier, she said, thank God for GPS, because there was times she just had to plug in GPS to get home. They forget. We call it Lyme brain. So it really is a thing. And I talk about this every holiday. Next weekend is Mother's Day. Please have some compassion for people in your family that may have an autoimmune issue. If you see them with any of the symptoms I talked about earlier, another common one is OCD. They get very, very manic-like. What does that mean? Obsessed with different things. I answer the phone for grocery stores. And it's so funny because I can tell right away when somebody's got an autoimmune issue, because they're almost on like, their voice is on like speed dial. They're just, it's almost like a sewing machine. They can't stop. And they're obsessed over something. Like they just keep going on and on and on about the same thing. It's almost impossible to get them off the phone. I'm like, oh man, they've got I can tell. Because they're very manic. Like that's how a manic person acts. So if you have anybody in the family that's very OCD, or we also have something we call Lyme rage, they get angry over nothing. And it's all part of the illness. It affects the nervous system. It affects the brain. Just have some compassion, even if you don't know if they have an autoimmune or Lyme. Chances are they might. So just have some compassion. Don't say that that's just, it's so-and-so being, you know what I mean? Like we get nitpicky and we start judging them and whatever. Just love on them. Hey, you might only see them once every 6 months. I don't know. But whether it's your mom themselves or somebody in the family, you don't see that often, and you know that they can be very OCD, whatever it is, or they have that like rage, like I talked about with Lyme, it might be an autoimmune illness. So I always try to address that, because I have a lot of people in my Facebook that are in the Lyme disease community, and I see all these things, and some of them don't even want to go out. They don't want to even deal with the holidays, whether it's Mother's Day, Easter, I don't know, Christmas, whatever. They don't even want to deal with it for two reasons. Well, more than one. They're not feeling well, and then they don't know what they can eat, because a lot of food allergies and food sensitivities is huge for an autoimmune issue. Like I said, it affects the gut. And the other thing that affects the gut too, we didn't even address this, but the medicine that you start to get put on. So if you are put on Western medicine, never mind the illness eating away your gut, these spirochetes, all the drugs that they start to give you to help you, that eats away at your gut too. So now this is what contributes to the food sensitivities, the food allergies. So, there's lots of reasons people, they have anxiety. That's the other one. They have a lot of anxiety. Many of them are afraid to just do things that they used to do. Just a lot of anxiety. So, just keep some compassion. If you have anybody in the family like that, now it may not specifically be Lyme disease. It could be mold toxicity. It could be lupus. It could be something else, but they're all similar. So just keep that in mind and, either help them. Maybe they need to be diagnosed, or just love on them. Maybe they don't want to be, and just respect. This is another thing I see, people that, have to eat gluten-free all the time. Respect that, respect the fact that they might have celiac and they, can't have any cross-contamination or whatever. Make sure you're aware of if anybody has to have an EpiPen, where that thing is, especially on Mother's Day when there's lots of people at the house, your house or someone else's. I've talked about that around Christmas, because that's when stuff happens, when you're eating something that, you're more apt to cheat on a holiday. Take it from somebody who knows, and that's when I would wind up in the hospital. So those are some key takeaways for Lyme disease I wanted people to be aware of. I don't know if anybody has any comments or questions. I did say I was going to give you some resources. So one resource that is the guru of all gurus is called ILADS. And that's International Lyme Association Disease Society. So it's I as in India, L as in Larry, A as in Apple, D as in dog, S as in Sam, .org. So if you're listening, the last three letters are org, O-R-G, O as in Oscar, R as in Roger, G as in Gary. That's the guru of all gurus. Like, to get the most, what's the word I want? The best information that you can get, because, there's a lot of garbage on the internet. I even told you some today that's a little bit controversial, right? But these are where all the doctors are that study Lyme disease. We call them Lyme literate doctors because they know about it. They understand it. There was a person that just recently died, Dr. Charles Ray Jones. He treated thousands and thousands of children with Lyme. He knew his stuff, so people like that are on that website. That's where you're going to get the information about like things I talked about, like co-infections and things like that. So, and then I told you you can use Tickies. Like I said, I don't make any money off of it, but it's just a little better than a tweezer. It's just a little kit, to carry with you if you're hiking and going outside and doing outdoorsy type stuff, because it is that time of year. I don't care where you live. And even if you're in California, even if you're in another country, it's everywhere. It's in Australia. It's everywhere. Don't think you are immune. And last but not least, diet. We didn't talk about diet. So what can help with Lyme? I talked a little bit about how sugar feeds it. So what can help? The least amount of sugar you eat, the better. And I will tell you, I witnessed something that was just crazy. There was a woman in our community, the Lyme disease community, and she goes, I've been eating all these carrots and I really don't feel well. Well, carrots have sugar. The sugar was feeding the illness. So even though carrots are good for us, it was too much sugar. So just keep that in mind. Even if it's fruit, even if it's a carrot, don't overdo it and start to listen to your own body. Journal everything. Because what we think might be good for us may not. And I've cautioned people that before on my other shows, and I'll do it again tonight. If you have an illness, and even, with our sponsor, if you are to check out all her products, they're amazing. Even if you were to purchase anything from her or to get any products to help you, if you are ill, I caution you to definitely check with your doctor. Different vitamins, things that we think are good for us, sometimes if you are ill, can not always be good for us. It might change our blood cell count. I don't know. Like I said, I am not a doctor. But you need to know that. You need to know, even if we think it's good for us, it might not be okay for you with your situation in your body. So check with your doctor. I highly suggest that, especially if you are ill. Don't be like, okay, yeah, this is great, I'm going to take this. Because the other thing that people get with Lyme disease, when they do start to take, like say they do herbal medicine, they get Herxheimer reaction. So what happens is, even though that herb is really, really great, I talked about the spirochetes, it's killing off those little spirochetes in the body. And now the body just like, oh my God, what do I do now? You know what I mean? Like it's fighting the fact that it's getting better. So now you just feel like real garbage. And they call that a Herx reaction. Herx is in xylophone. So just keep that in mind. I knew somebody, oregano is really good, right? Works as an antibiotic. She took too much oregano, and that made her really ill because she has Lyme disease and it just wasn't the right dosage for her. So even though we think these things are great, I think they're great, I'm not going to lie. But if you have an illness in your body, certain things, the way your body is going to react to them, you might need a specialist to know exactly how to take that product with what you have. So I just really want to point that out because that's something I didn't even realize. Somebody had to point it out to me. I didn't know it a few years back. So just keep that in mind. So with that, I am excited. Next week, our sponsor that we have for the month of May, Paula, and her product, she's going to come and share her story of what she's overcome in illness. So I'm excited. She's going to be here next week. Like I said, I am looking for more guests, more sponsors. We're going to be needing sponsors in June and beyond. I'm going to need guests. So if you are overcoming an illness and or have gone through an illness, please reach out to me. You can get me by text, 508-330-9665. If you're looking at the screen, it's right on the screen. That's the easiest way. Or you can do Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger. You can get me that way, and we can set up a time to talk. I am looking for sponsors for June. So I have all different package deals for sponsorship. You can be just a sponsor on the show. You could be a business spotlight. I have all different ones. You can reach out to me for that. I won't go over them all because it's probably not going to mean much by not looking at it. But that's about it. I just really wanted to share that. If anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to put them up on the screen. I am paying attention to that. And then we will end the show and we will see you next Sunday. Also, if you are going through an illness, or even if you're a practitioner out there, I can customize recipes for people. So I can do dairy-free, gluten-free, nut-free, low sugar, all of that. That's something I suffered from. Getting recipes that would work for me was something I suffered from big time. That was the hardest thing. And I know there's a ton of stuff on the internet now, but I like to make them simple so you don't have to go to every grocery store. Like, when I lived in Mass, I'd have to go to Trader Joe's, and then I'd have to go to Whole Foods, and I have to, you have to go all over the place. So I don't like to make people go all over the place to get their ingredients. I like to make it simple. And if you're not feeling well, you don't want to do any difficult dishes. So one of the things I have noticed is, yeah, you can get a lot off the internet, but a lot of times they're not easy recipes. I know I wouldn't do it. So if you need easy recipes for your clients, your patients, or even yourself, please reach out to me. Again, Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger, or you can just text me and we'll set up a time to talk. I do have some digital ebooks and recipe books on the website. I'm going to be adding more, but you may need them customized. So please reach out to me for that. So I'll give you another minute. If there's any comments, feel free to put them on the screen. And then with that, we will end the broadcast. I hope this was helpful. Once again, I knew nothing about Lyme disease until I just met Michelle. She took my raw food class years ago. We stayed in touch, and I did a few talks on Lyme, worked with them on the committee, and I've just learned a ton about it. So if you have any questions or you need help, feel free to reach out. I've got lots of resources that I can help you with. All right, I don't see any questions. So I will see you all next week with my guest, Paula, another Paula. It's not me. And I am really excited about that. So everybody stay safe over the week, and we will see you next Sunday at 7 p.m. Bye, everybody.